going to start by reading from Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 12. This is in the Ten Commandments. God says, "Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, or your ox, or your donkey, or any of your animals, not the alien within your gates, so that your manservant and maidservant may rest, as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day." Why would God have to command us not to work, but to rest? Well, if I'm honest, there are another 9 here on this list that mostly I can handle. I don't see it unreasonable for God to tell me not to commit adultery, or not to be jealous, or not to what other people have got, or not to commit murder. I really haven't got a problem with that one. Stealing, etc. You know, they're pretty reasonably, I don't want to do those things. But I can often find a whole host of very legitimate reasons why it's okay for me, this week anyway, this time, to break the Sabbath. Because, you know, the church needs leading. That sermon will write itself, and planning, responding when the phone buzzes, calendars getting filled in, opportunity knocking. I don't want to miss that. I don't want to disappoint people. And I started out the series, we've just started on restoration of the heart, by the personal confession that I know if I'm not careful, I can soon start believing my usefulness equates to my value. So my busyness can make me feel important. It can mask a deep fear of being, well, nobody. The Sabbath forces us to confront the reality of what life's like day to day and week by week, with not just an invitation, but a command for my own good to stop producing, and instead simply be present with God, with yourself, and with other people, with the people that we're called to love. It's a command that doesn't sit well with the age we live in. The principle, of course, was first given in times when people were still people just like us, but they lived in the agricultural age. Adam and Eve started out working in a garden, and when they left to go out into the world that was now full of thorns and thistles and weeds, they had to go in there and grow what they needed, and they had to go to sleep in ways that depended on whether the lights were up in the sky or not, rather than screens and electrics. And life was unavoidably seasonal. Plant, wait, harvest, rest. But even then, God had to command people to rest. Later, he even decreed that the land had to have Sabbaths, or it would not flourish. Leviticus chapter 25 starts like this. The Lord said to Moses, "When you enter the land I'm going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards and gather their crops," do the work. "But in the 7th year, the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest." He commanded that the soil had to lie fallow every 7th year. Why? Well, because everything that you grow pulls nutrients out of the ground. Because the land belongs to God. Because provision ultimately comes from him. And because trust was being built into the rhythm of 6 on, fully on, 1 fully off. You see that clearly reading down in the chapter here. God promises then, if the people would follow my decrees and be careful to obey my laws, then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and live there in safety. You may ask, this is what we'd ask, What will we eat in the 7th year if we do not plant or harvest our crops? This is what God says. I will send you such a blessing in the 6th year that the land will yield enough for 3 years. Now the problem is, the people didn't do it. They didn't trust, they didn't obey. There's no evidence Israel ever did it that way. God was patient with them year after year, every 7 years, waiting for them to do it, waiting for it to happen. Even on the 6th year, when he gives them 3 years of abundance, do they do it the next year? No. Every 50 years, waiting for a jubilee that's meant to reset everything and everybody. They never did that either. They disobeyed. I'm sure they did it for very good, sensible reasons every single time. For 70 cycles of years, 490 years in total, they just worked the land of Israel mercilessly. And they carried on making their servants work regardless. It was because Israel decided, we are our own provider. We need to make something happen. We need to work. It was because of that Israel refused to let the land rest. It was because of that we read in 2 Chronicles chapter 36 that the nation went into exile for 70 years. Why 70 years? 70 missing Sabbath years. God decided he was going to make the land rest. They could not come back, it says, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All those missing Sabbaths. Anybody else find that a bit sobering? Because we know it's not just them who ignore what God says. We just keep ploughing on. And after a day or a week, for a while, there's no observable difference. We can even actually get more done. But eventually, when we refuse to rest, rest will happen. It will happen to us. It's forced upon us by our frailty, by our finite creatureliness. It comes as a crash or a collapse or a crisis. If we don't follow the Maker's instructions, breakdown is guaranteed. After the agricultural age, here in the West, in Manchester, by the way, the birthplace of this revolution, we saw people moving from farms and fields into factories, from outside into offices, producing goods and services. People were still people, but now they had to become standardized units of production, part of the machinery through predictable shift patterns, clock on, clock off, all in the name of ever-increasing output and efficiency through time and motion. And now we're living through the next revolution, from the industrial to the information age, the digital era. Now the school, the shop, and the factory are all in your pocket. So the boundary between work and rest is dissolved. There's no whistle to end the shift. Notifications ping as our devices are our offices, our bedrooms are our boardrooms. Answering emails at night, waking up slaves to Slack, always available, always accessible, but rarely fully engaged. We're either consuming or being consumed by content, producing, generating data, optimizing and creating engagement, measuring metrics and analytics. Now, I'm not a modern day Luddite. I like the way I can use the phone, use computers, I can use AI to make me do things better, easier, faster. But when we outsource all the making, we're in danger of losing the meaning. We're losing the satisfaction of slow creating and gradual improvement. I can connect with anybody on the planet instantly, but I can miss the one who's sitting at the dinner table with me. We have more computing power, they say, in our pockets than NASA had to land on the moon, but how can we put it down and pray to the one who made the stars, the one who said, what use is it to gain the whole world but lose your very soul? Aren't we in danger of that? How can we worship? How do we Sabbath when we idolize speed, distraction, and optimization? Now, remember, though times have changed, we're not the first to face this problem. This ancient agricultural society in Israel did the same thing when they maximized their production, optimized their yields, and ignored the Sabbaths year after year. Sustainability isn't just an environmental issue, it's a spiritual issue. See, they believed they couldn't afford to stop. But the land needed rest. So do we. The rhythm of 6 and 1 isn't arbitrary. It's the heartbeat of life God's way, or we will break if we don't take a break. I don't know if it's really harder for us actually these days, but the evidence is in that we're less present but more anxious, more medicated, more divided, more lonely than ever, more restless, more sleepless, less alive. That's why we need God's word, and his rhythm's not another algorithm. A productivity hack won't save us, another app won't help us, another innovation won't heal us. We need to heed the word spoke into creation to get everything started, and follow the pattern of the one who knows how those he created are meant to work. We need to work with the rhythms written into the fabric of reality from the beginning, when God himself rested, even though he didn't need to show us that we really do. So remember, this isn't just, it's not Ivy's year of reorganizing. He's restoring us. And for that to happen, restoration of the heart, if we're to go forward his way, we have to go back to his ways, back to his word. We have to go and see who we are and how we were designed and made to live. We go back to the Creator and how we were made and how we are loved. Back to the Father, who doesn't see us as machines to be managed or cogs to keep turning, but as his children to be loved. He made us to bear his image, to burn bright for him, not burn out. He made us in his likeness. The Bible says a little lower than the angels. He crowned us with glory and honor to do work that matters and enjoy rest that restores. And one of the main ways that he made for that to happen is for us to go back to the Sabbath today. By the way I see this today, Sunday, is not my Sabbath. I try to make Wednesday that day for me. People laugh, of course, and say pastors only work one day a week, but today isn't a working day for me either. It's a day when I bring my gifts to serve the church, just like many of you do. I volunteer my time and my best here to the Lord and to you every Sunday. So if Sunday isn't your Sabbath, when is it? This week. Not someday, that's not a real day. Not later on, not when things slow down. Things will slow down a lot when we're dead. It gets really quiet around then. So don't put this off until you've caught up. How about you make a decision and plan it in the diary and start making room to obey the Lord and trust him that, he'll do the heavy lifting on all the other days to those who simply trust him one day a week with a Sabbath. Sabbath isn't a luxury for when we have margin. It's a practice that creates margin. Sabbath is an act of divine resistance in a world of human restlessness. Sabbath is the refusal to be defined by our productivity. It's a declaration if we lay down our tools, quieten our devices, and just say, God, you're God, and I'm not. In a world that's always on, Sabbath says, I'm off. In a culture of acceleration, Sabbath says, I'm going to slow down. In an economy that robs life, Sabbath restores life. And what if we try and practice this? Wouldn't the world notice, really, that we're different? Because we don't live at the same pace. We know how to take a breather. I bet someday soon, people will notice if we practice this. I bet God will bless our obedience and our trust in him. Because the world's changed and keeps getting faster, but God still has a way for us to press pause and be human beings in a digital age trying to turn us into something else. And that way is called Sabbath. Here's what Sabbath means in practice. 3 words. Make a note. We'll underline them. I'll explain them one at a time. In the Bible, Sabbath number 1 means stop. It means rest. And it means worship. So, number 1, stop. Literally, that's what Shabbat means. The Hebrew word Shabbat just means one thing: stop, cease, desist, quit, don't. The word shows up before God wrote it into the 10 Commandments that I started with. In Exodus chapter 16, one time it shows up when God provides the manna that comes down from heaven every day. Food comes down in the desert. And before God wrote it in the law, he gave them this visual lesson and told them, for 6 days, get out there, get after it. Gather as much as you need. You don't need to get more than you need because I'm going to provide tomorrow as well. Then, on the 7th day, stop. Shabbat. Stop gathering. 6 days, gather what you need for that day, each day. And I'll give you your daily bread. Trust me. He warns them, don't try and keep extra overnight. Some people do, of course. Guess what happens? It rots. It gets worms in it. It goes bad. God's teaching them. He's showing them, trust me for today. I'll provide again tomorrow. Then comes day 6. God says, okay, this is what you do today. Gather double. The miracle is that this time it won't spoil overnight. Why? Because on day 7 there won't be any manna. You don't need to work. Nothing falls. Nothing happens. What's the lesson? Trust. Stop. Trust. God says, trust me to provide double on day 6. Trust me, there will be enough. It will be okay. It won't spoil. Don't work. Trust me enough to not even go out looking on day 7 for it. Now, what happens? Some people, of course, people like me, got up early and went out there anyway on the 7th day, looking for manna that wasn't there. And God looked at Moses and he said, how long will they refuse to keep my commandments? The command was just one word, stop. And they couldn't. They couldn't do it. Stop getting. Stop producing. Stop trying to secure tomorrow today. Just stop. So you keep the Sabbath holy by, number 1, stopping. And then number 2, rest. Genesis 1 describes creation and how God worked every day for 6 days. And then it says he stopped. It says on the 7th day, God rested from all his work. God had been working. Now he stopped. He didn't rest because he was tired. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 28 tells us the Lord does not grow weary or tired. So Genesis 2 is not about divine exhaustion. It's about divine example for you and for me. See, God is the one who doesn't get tired, but we do. He's the one who doesn't slumber or sleep, but we have to. So God stopped. God rested to show us it's okay to rest. To establish this rhythm in creation, 6 and 1. There's a great Bible Project video that shows us something that we miss. It says that on the 7th day in Genesis, that day never ends. Because all the other days, it says there was evening and there was morning on day 2, 5, whatever. But there's no evening and morning on day 7. It's still going, which means God is inviting his people into his rest. And then it shows us that Jesus has made a way for us to live that way again. Not resting from God, but resting in God. The way God made Adam also shows us a really important pattern too. How different would it be if we didn't just rest from work, but we work from rest? I know what it's like to work harder and faster, like I've got to earn the right to have a day off or to rest. So, often I'm like, once I finish this and get all of these things done, then I can rest. But the rhythm God built into creation in the way that he made humans starts with rest. Again, it's in Genesis chapter 2. It says, God rested, so Adam's first full day was what? A Sabbath. He didn't earn it. He received it. I read years ago, somebody talked about this like a pendulum. If you can picture a pendulum swinging, you got fully on, fully off. Fully on, fully off. We've seen in the series so far, actually, this is exactly how Jesus modeled life too. And we're going to see that in the weeks ahead as well. Jesus had come to do some pretty important work in a very limited time frame. But you read the Gospels and you'll see he's not stressed out, he's not rushing about, and you'll see that he engages intensely with individuals and with crowds. He's fully on, he's teaching, he's healing, he's surrounded by need, and then he's off. He withdraws completely, it says. He goes to solitary places to pray and be with the Father. Luke 5 verse 16 says Jesus often withdrew to lonely places where he prayed. See, God designed life to work best when we swing from being fully on and fully off. Fully on, fully off. The solution for restoration is to intentionally get that rhythm back. Fully on means I'm focused, I'm present, I'm engaged. When I work, I really work. High energy. I don't have all those other distractions popping. Fully off means I'm completely disengaged from work. Time for the disciplines that we're going to be looking at. Solitude and silence, recreation, relationships, soul restoration. Fully off. How many of us will admit the way that we actually live is half on all the time? Half working when we're resting, half resting when we're working, half present with our friends or with our kids, half distracted by our phones and devices. Sabbath restores the swing if we stop, if we rest. And number 3, Sabbath is a time for worship. So the way the Bible talks about Sabbath, it's more than a day off. Especially since it became for us a day when we remember the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's not just a day off, it's a day where we fully enjoy the presence of God, not just that we have some absence of work. The Puritans call the Sabbath the market day of the soul, because this is when you trade something. What do you trade? It doesn't mean you're working on the Sabbath, it means you're trading something. You are exchanging your burdens for his rest. You exchange your striving for his peace. You exchange your fear for his presence. Again, it doesn't have to be a Sunday. If it is for you, brilliant. But I worked shifts for years and I had to find a way to get that rhythm of a Sabbath day, 1 in 7. What do you do then on the Sabbath? Jesus practiced Sabbath. Luke 4:16 says it was his custom. But he also restored it, and he didn't do it the way that other people, the Pharisees, did it in his time. In fact, he took it back from the Pharisees, who turned what God made for our freedom into a minefield, into a prison of 39 categories of forbidden work. You couldn't tie a knot on the Sabbath. It was all, don't do this, don't do that. And Jesus came and said, you know what? You missed the point completely. He said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It was made for man because it's a gift from God to you, to restore you. It's not a burden to restrict you. They were saying you're not allowed to do anything. No, he said today's a good day to do good. He healed on the Sabbath. He fed hungry people on the Sabbath. It's okay to do those things. He said if an animal or if somebody's stuck on the Sabbath, won't you go and help them? So who do you know who's stuck? You can go and visit them. Go and see them on the Sabbath. You can do good on the Sabbath. That's keeping it holy. It's not just me time, it's God time, and it could be you time. If I'm helping you, loosing what ties people up, helping the poor, the homeless, visiting, praying for the sick. Because this isn't legalism we're talking about. Nobody's judging anybody. But actually, Paul warned about that in Colossians 2. He said, don't let anybody judge you about Sabbath days. Freedom is what Sabbath's about. Freedom in Christ is real, but freedom's not I do whatever I want. It's I want to live right the way God says it's the right way to live. And freedom is I've got power now to do what God wants me to do. So how about we practice this? Choose a day, and on that day, coming up soon, write it in the diary. It could be a few weeks off. I know you're busy and maybe you're going to think, I can't do it this week. All right, put it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. Make that the day when you will stop and rest and worship 24 hours. The Jews finish it in the evening before and go right the way through till the next day because they go to bed trusting God that you're God and you're in charge of the world, so I'll leave it with you and I'll wake up in the morning trusting you too. So you don't have to do it as a day. You could do it as an evening through till dawn till dusk, to dusk the next day. So pick one, anyway, 1 in 7, and declare it and announce it. Tell people, put it on your email signature. Sabbath day today. Put it on your calendar, and then stop. What does that look like for you? Is it the phone on airplane mode or in the basket? There's times recently I've had to model that the church will survive if I don't respond for 24 hours, or when I was recently on holiday, it's hard for me to do that. But I'm saying to my boss, you're God, I'm not. So I will stop like you say to do, and I will rest. I'm not going to get ahead and make a start on next week's work. I'm going to rest and do what actually restores me. J.I. Packer said about the Sabbath, Choose the leisure activities that bring you closest to God, to people, to beauty, and to all that ennobles. I love that word. All that ennobles, beautiful things. For me, that could be going on a long walk, or reading a fiction book, or a Christian book, or the Bible, or praying and playing with my grandkids, and just letting the land in my heart lie fallow. Stop, rest, and worship. If you're blessed to Sabbath on a Sunday, if it's not a work day for you, then please make sure you gather with God's people. Make church community the anchor for this. Build the rest of your day around it. That's what us who are working on this day are trying to do as a gift to you. We want you to fully enjoy God today and enjoy the community we're trying to create here at Ivy. Let everything else orbit around that, because a day off is such a gift. But that's just recreation. Sabbath is something way better. It's restoration. When you worship here, be fully on. Everything else, be fully off. What's Sabbath going to look for you? What's it going to look like for you? Is it going to be really time for you to stop? Is it time to rest? It's time to worship. And now we're going to worship. So let's enjoy doing that.